This isn't just about a late-night host taking a jab at a politician. This isn't even just about that politician. What you're about to hear, the incident that sparked a firestorm, reveals something far more dangerous brewing beneath the surface of our daily news. It's a pattern, a tactic, a silent erosion of something we all desperately need: truth. And it's setting the stage for a seismic shift in how power operates, how information is controlled, and how your reality is shaped. Most people miss the real warning sign in that moment, buried under the headlines and the quick outrage. But the implications? They could reshape everything you thought you knew about accountability, about the media, and about the secret dealings that truly move the world. Pay close attention, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Imagine you're a journalist. You've got a critical question, one that a lot of people want answers to. It's about Jeffrey Epstein, a name that still sends chills down spines, a scandal that implicates powerful figures, and the release of documents that could shake the world. So you step forward, microphone in hand, and you ask. Simple, direct. That's exactly what CNN's Kaitlan Collins did. She was there, doing her job, trying to get clarity on the Epstein Files and the victims who desperately need justice. She asked Donald Trump directly about his connection to Epstein and what he knew. A legitimate question, right? Given the history, given the public interest, given the gravity of the whole situation. But the response wasn't a denial, or a statement of ignorance, or even a promise to look into it. What came next wasn't about Epstein at all. Instead, it was a sudden, jarring pivot. A personal shot. A jab at the journalist herself. Trump called Collins fake news, dismissed her, and then moved on, effectively shutting down the line of questioning without ever addressing the core issue. Now Jimmy Kimmel, like many late-night hosts, often critiques politicians. It's part of the job. But his reaction to this specific exchange was different. He wasn't just making a joke. He saw something deeper, something more insidious. He called it the worst possible response. And he wasn't wrong. Because in that single moment, something important happened. Not just a slight, not just a verbal spat, but a masterful act of misdirection. It was a tactic. A distraction bomb. Think about it. The public conversation, for a brief, crucial period, wasn't about Epstein anymore. It wasn't about the victims. It wasn't about accountability for the rich and powerful. It was suddenly about the interaction itself. Was Trump right to call her fake news? Was Collins being disrespectful? Who was being rude? The actual, terrifying substance of the Epstein scandal, the reason the question was asked in the first place, evaporated into thin air. This is where it gets dangerous. Because if you can deflect every uncomfortable question, every legitimate inquiry, every demand for answers by simply attacking the messenger, what happens to the truth? What happens to the stories that need to be told? What happens to justice? This isn't just political theater. It's a playbook for controlling the narrative. And once you see this move, you'll start to spot it everywhere. This wasn't an accident. This was a demonstration of a very deliberate strategy. For generations, there was a generally understood, if imperfect, system. Journalists asked questions. Politicians gave answers, or at least tried to. The public, by and large, had a basic level of trust in major news organizations, even if they disagreed with their slant. It wasn't perfect, but it was a foundation. But that foundation is cracking, and incidents like the Kimmel-Trump Collins saga expose just how fragile it's become. When a reporter, doing their job, asking about a major scandal, is instantly branded fake news, it does more than just insult one person. It poisons the well for everyone. It tells the audience that the source of the information isn't credible, without ever having to dispute the facts themselves. Think about the average person, the middle-class family trying to understand what's happening in the world. They're bombarded with information from every angle: traditional news, social media, podcasts, blogs. How do you sort through it all? How do you know who to believe? When those in power consistently label critical reporting as fake, it creates a massive vacuum of trust. Suddenly, Every piece of information becomes suspect. Was that report about the economy true, or is it fake news from a biased source? Is that story about a political decision real, or just an agenda-driven lie? This isn't just abstract political theory. This directly impacts your daily life. It affects how you vote, how you invest, how you raise your kids, and what you believe about the society around you. When trust crumbles, chaos often fills the void. People stop listening to established institutions and start seeking out information that confirms their existing beliefs, even if that information is entirely false. This is how echo chambers form. This is how misinformation spreads like wildfire. And when everyone is living in their own version of reality, making collective decisions for the good of society becomes almost impossible. Kimmel's frustration wasn't just about Trump being rude. It was about the slow, deliberate dismantling of the framework that allows us to even have a shared conversation. It's about the erosion of the idea that there are objective facts that can be reported, challenged, and understood. And without that, we're left drifting in a sea of suspicion, where every statement is questioned, not for its accuracy, but for its perceived agenda. This isn't just about politics. It's about the very future of how we understand our world. Let's rewind. Before the personal attack, before Kimmel's outrage, there was a question. A question about the Epstein Files. A question that, frankly, still hasn't been adequately answered by many involved. Jeffrey Epstein. The name alone conjures images of unimaginable horror, underage victims, and a network of powerful, influential people who, for years, seemed untouchable. His death, ruled a suicide, remains a source of widespread suspicion, fueling conspiracy theories and legitimate questions alike. The release of documents connected to his case isn't just legal housekeeping, it's a potential earthquake. These files, these names, these testimonies, they aren't just dusty papers. They represent the stories of real victims, the potential exposure of high-profile individuals, and a glimpse into a dark underworld where money, power, and exploitation intersected. The public has a right to know. The victims deserve justice. And the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, needs to see the light of day. So when Kaitlan Collins asked about Trump's past connections, about what he knew, about the implications of these files, she wasn't asking a trivial question. She was hitting a nerve. She was touching on a wound in society that hasn't healed, a stain that hasn't washed away. The refusal to answer, the deflection, the personal attack, it wasn't just a random act of pique. It was a strategy to avoid engaging with the substance of that wound. It's a way of saying, don't look there. Don't ask about that. Change the subject. This tactic is precisely why the Epstein Files continue to be such a potent symbol. They represent the deep, unspoken fear that some people are truly above the law. That there are secrets so dark, so damaging, that the powerful will go to extreme lengths, even sacrificing public trust and decorum, to keep them buried. The incident with Kimmel and Trump, then, becomes a flashpoint. It highlights how effectively the real story can be obscured. The real story isn't about two men feuding on television. It's about a systematic attempt to push critical, uncomfortable truths out of the public eye, especially when those truths involve the powerful. And if they can do it on Epstein, what other uncomfortable truths are being pushed aside right now, without us even realizing it? The silence around this is deafening, and it's a silence that directly impacts the idea that anyone, no matter how rich or influential, can be held accountable. Let's step back from this specific incident for a moment and look at the broader picture. What happens when the default mode of communication, especially from those in power, becomes dismissiveness and personal insults? What happens when empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another, gets pushed to the sidelines? When Jimmy Kimmel called out Trump's response, he wasn't just defending a fellow journalist. He was, in a way, defending the idea of respectful dialogue. Because when you stop seeing the other person as a human being with a legitimate question or a valid point of view, and instead label them an enemy or fake, something vital breaks down. This breakdown isn't confined to late-night television or political rallies. It trickles down into our daily lives. Think about family arguments that escalate because no one is truly listening. Think about community meetings where good ideas are drowned out by personal grudges. Think about online forums where civil discussion is a rarity, replaced by insults and accusations. The way our leaders communicate, for better or worse, sets a tone. When they resort to personal attacks to avoid difficult questions, they implicitly give permission for everyone else to do the same. This creates a culture where genuine discussion is seen as a weakness, and aggressive deflection is seen as strength. For the middle class, for the average person just trying to make sense of things, this has real consequences. It means that issues that actually affect your life, healthcare costs, education, job security, climate change, often get sidelined. Instead of discussing solutions, we're constantly embroiled in manufactured controversies and personality clashes. Important problems go unaddressed because the space for constructive conversation has been destroyed. The emotional toll is also immense. Constant negativity, the feeling that society is fractured, that no one is listening to anyone else, it leads to cynicism, disengagement, and a sense of hopelessness. People stop believing that things can get better because they stop believing that anyone can even agree on what the problems are, let alone how to fix them. The incident, therefore, wasn't just a moment of tension. It was a symptom of a much deeper illness, one that slowly but surely erodes our ability to connect, to understand, and to collectively build a better future. We've explored how a single incident, a quick exchange between a politician and a journalist, escalated into a critique by a late-night host. We've seen how that moment wasn't just about rudeness, but about a deliberate tactic to avoid tough questions, specifically concerning the unsettling implications of the Epstein Files. We've dissected how this behavior erodes public trust, blurs the lines of truth, and ultimately diminishes our collective capacity for empathy and problem-solving. But what's the real consequence of all this? What's about to happen that most people have no idea about? It's not a single event, but a profound, almost imperceptible shift in the entire way our society functions. We are moving towards an era where information isn't just skewed, it's aggressively contested at every turn. Where objective truth becomes a matter of opinion, and authority figures can simply declare inconvenient facts invalid. This leads to a world where genuine accountability becomes an increasingly rare commodity. If questions can always be dismissed, if messengers can always be attacked, then those with power gain an unprecedented level of immunity. They can act with fewer repercussions, knowing that any challenge can be neutralized by simply casting doubt on the source or the premise. For you, the everyday citizen, this means several things. First, the burden of finding truth will fall almost entirely on your shoulders. You'll have to become a tireless investigator, sifting through layers of misinformation and deflection, just to understand basic facts. Second, your ability to hold leaders accountable will diminish. When every critique is labeled as biased or fake, your voice, your concerns, your vote, start to lose their impact on those who are supposed to serve you. Finally, and perhaps most alarmingly, it means that truly significant, potentially world-altering issues, like the full truth of the Epstein Files, or climate change, or systemic corruption, can be perpetually sidelined. They can be drowned out by the noise of manufactured outrage and personal squabbles, never truly addressed, never truly resolved. This isn't just about politics getting a bit rough. This is about the very foundations of a functioning society being undermined. It's about losing the ability to collectively agree on reality, which is the first step to solving any problem. The incident Kimmel reacted to wasn't an anomaly. It was a potent demonstration of a strategy that's becoming increasingly normalized. And if we don't recognize it for what it is, if we don't demand a return to honest discourse and accountability, we risk drifting into a future where the powerful are unchecked, the truth is optional, and the voice of the average person is silenced by a constant barrage of distraction and doubt. What's about to happen is the consolidation of power through the systematic control of information, leaving most people disoriented and disempowered without ever realizing why. This isn't just a political skirmish. It's a profound cultural shift that demands our attention. The erosion of trust, the weaponization of language, and the sidestepping of critical issues like the Epstein Files are not isolated incidents. They are pieces of a larger puzzle. A puzzle that, once fully assembled, reveals a future where the rules of power and truth are fundamentally rewritten.